Let's go buy some potting mix. This is material you use indoors for potted plants and outside for containers. I'm going to show you a number of different products and help you understand what the wording on the packages mean. Which claims can you believe and which are just plain hype? What is important when you go and buy one of these products? And probably most important, what's in the bags? I'd like to know what I'm buying. So this program will help you better understand the terminology around potting mix and help you select the right one for your needs. Here's a bag of Miracle-Gro seed starting mix. How is that different from potting mix? If you look at the bag, there's no explanation as to why this is seed starting mix as opposed to potting mix. Now, in general, I would expect seed starting mixes to be a little finer than potting mix. But since they don't tell you how big the particle size are, you don't really know that for sure. If you're starting seeds, should you buy a seed starting mix or just a potting mix? Well, I don't see any advantage to a seed starting mix. You don't need it. I use one of the regular Pro Mix to start all my seeds, even my Streptocarpus. And Streptocarpus seed are some of the smallest seed you'll ever see. If you're familiar with lettuce seed, which a lot of gardeners think is small seed, Streptocarpus is 1,000 times smaller. And they grow just fine with a regular potting mix. I see no point in using seed starting mixes. Now it says here it's specially formulated for fast root development. That's just marketing hype. The roots will grow as fast as the top part of the plant allows it to grow. You don't get small top parts and huge roots. Plant won't do that. A plant balances the amount of roots it has to the amount of leaf surface it has. So what determines leaf surface? Well, the potting media has very little to do with that, provided it's porous enough. It doesn't add much else. Now, it does add some fertilizer, some nutrients, but you're going to add that using fertilizer anyways. The two main things controlling your seedling growth are lights and temperature. For most homeowners, lighting is the key to growing bigger plants and bigger root systems. It's not a specially formulated potting mix. They go on to give you some advice about lighting and watering and so on. You can pretty much ignore that information. Treat your seedlings the way you do any other plant. I found this comment kind of odd. It says, transplant after the first true leaves. I don't see any reason for doing that. The seedlings can grow in these mixes for a long time. In fact, these things could be several feet tall before you transplant them, provided you give them a pot that's big enough. This advice is very strange. I don't get it. Here's another product. The Miracle-Gro Tropical Potting Mix. What is a tropical potting mix and how is it different from other types of mixes? Well, I have news for you. Most of your house plants are tropical plants, and they grow just fine in any potting mix. There's really no such thing as tropical potting mix. This is a marketing term that Miracle-Gro's for this particular product. It has no advantages over other products. Now, what makes this product different? Well, it includes some lava rock. But if you look at the ingredients in the bag, it doesn't actually tell you how much lava rock you get. I mean, is this bag mostly full of lava rock or mostly full of organic potting mix? I have no idea. You don't need lava rocks in your potting mix. But if you did want to add that, I would buy it as a separate product and add it in the ratio that you really want. I wouldn't buy it already added into a bag where you don't even know how much is in there. I found this comment a little odd too. It says this product is less prone to gnats. That's a great marketing claim. Homeowners know about gnats and they don't want gnats, so a product that doesn't have gnats would be great. It goes on to say it contains no compost or bark which are known to shelter gnats. Well, I looked this up to try and find some sort of support for this claim, and I really can't find any. I don't think bark is going to encourage fungus gnats. Now, compost may. Compost is rotting material, and you're going to find fungus in rotting material, and the fungus is the food for fungus gnats. But I use Promex, which is almost 100% peat moss and a little perlite added. It doesn't have any compost in it, and it also gets fungus gnats. So the fact that there's no compost or bark in this is not going to stop your fungus gnat. You're going to get fungus gnats in any pot that's kept wet that has soil in it and has plants growing in it. If you have fungus gnats in the home, they're going to find your pots. They don't really care that you bought this special miracle grow. So just ignore terms like that. Now, if you're interested in getting rid of your gnats and understanding what gnats are, have a look at an article I published in gardenmyths.com. It's called How to ID and Get Rid of Fungus Gnats. There's a claim on this bag that says it's been made sustainably. This is a personal beef of mine. Every company in the world is now marketing their products as sustainable. That's complete nonsense. You cannot manufacture and bag a product and ship it around the country in a sustainable way. Everything you do, the transportation, the packaging, the manufacturing, the collection of raw materials, everything harms the environment. I don't know why all these companies are suddenly calling this sustainable, except that some consumers are being conned and they believe the product's better. Just ignore any statements of sustainability on products. They mean nothing these days because everyone is claiming it. Here's another product, ProMix, Premium Organic Vegetable and Herb Mix. So what does premium mean? Well, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. Again, that's a marketing term. This one is designed to be organic. And if you look at the bag, it is MRI listed. What that means is that the product has been tested and approved for organic certified farming. I don't know what benefit that gives a homeowner. Not many homeowners are certified organic farmers. But people like the term organic, and when they see it, they think it's a better product. That's not necessarily true. It really tells you nothing about the product. All potting mixes are organic. They're all based on things like coconut coir, peat moss, composted wood, compost. Those are all organic materials. So all potting mix really is organic. They've added in the terms vegetable and herb mix. Those aren't special plants that need a special mix. Potting mixes work for all plants. There's a claim on the side here that says that this product will grow 20% bigger than other premium brands. So they're claiming the plants in this material will grow bigger. But there's a little trick to this. If you look beside the 20%, you'll see a very, very tiny asterisk. And you have to look at that asterisk and see what it means. And in fact, some manufacturers hide the meaning of that, like this bag. They put it right at the bottom of the bag. What they're usually comparing is growing in their product versus straight peat moss that has no fertilizer added. And if you don't use fertilizer, you get smaller plants. Well, big deal. If you're growing in potting media, whether they're seedlings or houseplants, it doesn't matter, you're going to fertilize. So this 20% claim is, again, a bogus marketing ploy. Now, ProMix is very big on marketing their new mycoactive technology. What is this? Well, a lot of it is mumbo-jumbo scientific stuff, and they keep it hidden. They just tell you it's really great, and you should buy into that. Now, one of the things that technology does do is add mycorrhizal fungi into the soil. Now, if you look at the ingredient list on this bag, it adds 1 species of mycorrhizal fungi. Now, that's not many. Many other products will add 20. So let's have a closer look at this mycorrhizal fungi. In nature, these are important for plants. They make associations with plants and they benefit the plant. The problem is that in a container of soilless mix, the mycorrhizal fungi usually don't do anything. If you're going to fertilize properly, the plant is getting the nutrients it needs and it won't make the association with the fungi. It only does that if it's not getting enough nutrient, like out in the garden. But in a potted mix, we don't have that situation. So it really has no value there. The other thing to be aware of is the fine print. If you read the fine print, it says very clearly that this product now has an expiration date. You see, these fungi don't live forever. They only live for a certain period of time and then they die. So if you have an old bag of this material around, the fungi are probably dead anyway. I just see no benefit for adding these mycorrhizal fungi into a potting mix. If we have a closer look at the ingredient list, it says it's 40% organic matter, 65% maximum moisture, and then some smaller numbers for the nutrients that have been added. All of the percent numbers in this ingredient list, except the moisture one, are for a dry weight. So the moisture is taken out of the material and then it's analyzed and it tells you those percentage values. I'm going to discuss this issue in more detail on the next product I'm going to have a look at, and that's Miracle-Gro potting mix. This is their basic potting mix brand. This product also makes big claims about their product, and it shows that plants in this product grow twice as big. Again, you have to look at that asterisk, that fine detail. What it's really saying is the plants grow twice as big on this product because it has fertilizer in it compared to a product that has no fertilizer. So this comparison is really completely meaningless. You're going to fertilize your plant. Let's go down to the ingredient list. Now this product has 15% organic matter, and then about 1% of other things. And those other things listed are nutrients and some wetting agents that help water soak into the material. It's about 1%. So we have a total of 16%. Now remember, the moisture level is removed from this. So that 16% is based on dry weight. So I had the question, here's a product made out of organic material, and yet it claims only 15% is organic material. What is the balance? The majority of what's in this bag is not organic material. So I thought, well, let me call the information line that they have. Let me talk to some product specialists and see what they have to say. Well, the good news is that I got through right away on the phone call. That was a real surprise. So their support group is working very well that way. The problem is none of the people I contacted have a clue about their product. So when I told them I'm talking about their basic potting mix and described the bag to them, I even sent them a picture of the bag and said, this is the product I'm asking about. They didn't know what that product was. They couldn't give me any information about that product. When I pointed out the fact that it had 15% organic matter and I wanted to know what the balance was, well, they told me the balance was things like shredded wood, compost, peat moss, coir, and so on. The product also has a little bit of perlite in it. That's not organic. But I pointed out to them that this product only has 15% organic matter and that they don't tell me what the rest of it is. Could they explain what that is? I talked to 5 different people. Not one of them could explain what the balance of the material is. So basically here you have a bag of potting mix. 15% is peat moss, shredded wood, coir, whatever. And they have no idea what the balance is. That's a real concern for me. And that's one reason I would not buy this product. If they can't tell you what's in the bag, you shouldn't be buying it. How about the Jiffy Premium Seed Starting Mix? It claims to be of professional greenhouse quality. I really doubt too many professional greenhouses use this product. They're generally buying large quantities of material and they buy it in large bales, not these tiny bags. Words like premium and professional greenhouse quality, those are just marketing terms that really don't tell you anything, and you have to learn to just ignore those. In this case, the ingredients are listed as 60 to 70% being sphagnum peat moss, vermiculite, coir, and some lime for pH. Now, peat moss tends to be acidic, and so adding a little lime is pretty common. I don't know this product, but I will give it a plus for at least being honest about the ingredients. I still wonder what the extra 30% might be, because if you look at that ingredient list, it's got everything you need. You don't need another 30% of something else. Now, I'm going to guess that the extra 30% are shredded wood products, composted wood products. More and more products are adding that to the potting mix, and they're doing that because it's a cheap product, and so it lowers the cost of their product. I'm not convinced that that is good for growing plants, although it's become more popular in the UK because they've outlawed the use of peat moss, and so it may not harm the plants. I'm going to make a special program about adding shredded wood to your mixes. How about this product? Miracle-Gro Indoor Potting Mix. What is special about the potting mix that makes it suitable for indoor plants and not outdoor plants? That's just more marketing hype. Any potting mix you buy can be used indoors or outdoors. It's generally used on any kind of container. You can use it for containers on your patio, and people even use it in their raised beds, although it can be kind of an expensive option. This product also claims that it's less prone to gnats, but as you already know, we'll just ignore that claim. The product says that it feeds for 6 months. Now, a lot of the new potting mixes include a small amount of fertilizer, so you don't have to fertilize right away. But how valid is the 6-month period? If you water more, you'll wash the nutrients out faster. So I don't know how they can claim 6 months. Now, if we go down to the repotting section, it has an odd comment there. It says you should repot annually to avoid compaction and to replace nutrients. All right, let's first discuss compaction. Why would soil in an indoor pot compact? Do you have a lot of mice running over the top of it with big feet? Potting mix doesn't really compact indoors. Now, it does settle a bit, but there's no reason to repot because of compaction. I don't understand that claim at all. Now, it says the other reason to repot annually is to replenish nutrients. But up above, it says the material only has enough nutrients for 6 months. So what happens to the other 6 months? You're going to have plants growing in this material without nutrients, and then at the end of the year, you put it in fresh stuff? That makes no sense at all. And by the way, if you're wondering if you have to replenish that potting mix, you don't. You can use potting mix for years, and I have discussed that on my blog, gardenmist.com. It says it's blended for container plants. As I've mentioned, we don't make potting mixes for containered plants. These mixes can be used for any plant. They're not specific for containers. In fact, it's the type of plant that determines the potting mix, not the vessel that's being used to hold it. Here's another one of these specialty Miracle-Gro products. The Cactus, Palm, and Succulent mix. Now, I think the reason Miracle-Gro is making these various types of products is that it hopes that you will buy a different bag for every plant you're growing. But that's just nonsense. You don't need that. Now, this product is claimed to drain quickly, and that is important for these kind of plants. Cactus, palms, and succulents want soil that drains quickly. But if you have a look at the ingredient list, it has 15% organic matter, a little less fertilizer than some of the other Miracle-Gro products. But again, they fail to tell us what else is in this bag. Now, if I was making up a cactus mix, I would probably use 50% sand. But they actually claim there's no sand in this mix. I don't see how they can create a special cactus mix and have the same ingredient list as the other products which are made for other kinds of house plants and tropical plants. Their marketing really doesn't make a lot of sense. I also found a comment in their lighting section a bit odd. It says that after repotting, place in a shady spot for 4 to 5 days. I'm not quite sure why they say that. When I repot plants, I put them back into the same light that they're used to. Now, I do water them to make sure they're getting enough moisture. But cactus and succulents, they don't really want a shady spot. So there's no need to do that. How about the Espoma organic cactus mix? Let's compare that to the previous cactus mix. Now, this product claims to be all natural, and yet it's enhanced with mycorrhizal fungi, which of course have been made in a lab or factory and added to the product. I don't really consider that natural. And it contains perlite, which is definitely not natural. Now, perlite is made from mined minerals, but then it's heavily processed. So you can't go out in nature and find perlite anywhere. It's not a natural product. When products claim that they're natural, they're doing that because the general population considers natural as being better than non-natural. So by putting that word on the bag, people think it's a better product when it really isn't. According to the bag, this also doesn't have any sand in it. And as I mentioned before, that's a big part of any cactus mix that I've ever used. Now, if we look at the back of the bag, you see that it has 10 different species of mycorrhizal fungi added. That's certainly better than just adding the one, because then there's a better chance of those fungi associating with your plant. Now, I wonder, do cactus actually have associations with mycorrhizal fungi? So I looked that up, and it turns out that many of them do. But we have a fundamental problem here. Cactus make these associations in nature when they're growing in soil. They will also make these associations when growing in potting media, provided they're not being fertilized properly. So if the nutrient level is really low, then they make the associations and let the fungi get some nutrients for them. But if you're growing these plants in containers, you're going to fertilize them. And if you fertilize them, the plants don't need the mycorrhizal fungi and they won't make the associations. The fungi will simply die. There is no value in adding these to potting mixes. Here's a product I'd never seen before. It's called Wonder Soil. It's a great product name. I mean, who doesn't want wonderful soil? Now it says it's made from sustainable resources and it's made out of coconut coir. So coconut coir is shredded up coconuts. This is the outer shell of the coconuts, the part we don't eat. And so it's considered a waste product. And so there's lots of people running around saying we should use coir. By making coconut coir, we take a waste product and turn it into something we can use. And that sounds very sustainable, doesn't it? It sounds even more sustainable because this replaces peat moss. And peat moss has gotten a bad rap. Everyone thinks that by harvesting peat moss for these mixes, we're damaging bogs, and that's simply not true. It turns out that harvesting peat moss is actually quite sustainable. And on my website, gardenmist.com, I have an article that discusses peat moss and its effect on the environment. The bottom line is that peat moss used in horticulture is not doing any damage to our peat bogs and our peat resources. What about coir? Is that better? I mean, reusing a waste product sounds like it would be much better. And I've got an article about that too. The problem with coir is that it's full of salt because these palm trees grow along the oceans, and so they're very salty. So to make the coir, they have to wash these with fresh water. And this is done in countries like India and Sri Lanka, where they have a very limited supply of fresh water. So they're using fresh water, washing the salt out of the coconut husk to create the product for us, and then it's shipped to Europe or North America for use. That is not very sustainable. There is a report that actually compares the environmental impacts of making coir and using peat moss, and they come out about the same. From an environmental perspective, coir is not a better product. Now, Wonder Soil also includes mycorrhizal fungi and kelp and worm casting. There's a general belief by many gardeners that kelp and worm castings have some magical properties. Somehow they're much better than fertilizer, but that's false. Synthetic fertilizer works just as well as kelp and worm casting and has one big advantage. When we fertilize plants with synthetic fertilizer, we actually know what nutrients are being released to the plant. When we use things like kelp and worm castings, we don't know how fast the nutrients are being released to the plant. We don't know that the plant is being fertilized properly, and we don't know when those nutrients run out, so we don't know when to replace them. They may be very popular for people who want to go the organic route, but they don't grow better plants. Wonder Soil also claims that it's good for all plants, and in some ways I agree with that. It lists flowers, seedlings, herbs, vegetables, fruits, houseplants, shrubs, and more. Now, in general, I agree because you can use this product for almost everything. But there are two exceptions. One is cactus and succulents, and the other one are orchids. And there are some other less known exceptions as well. So you do have to be a little careful. You do have to know which plants you're buying the material for. I hope you understand potting mix a lot better and that you feel like, well, maybe you can go to the store and actually understand what is written on the bags. But now I'd like to answer a different question. What do I use? So first of all, I don't really recommend a product. One of the things I've learned is that a lot of these bags of potting mix change from state to state and from country to country. So what you have in your bag may be quite different than what I get when I buy mine. So you really have to look locally and see what's available. However, I've been using a product called Promex, and I've been using that for, 30 years. I don't use a lot of potting mix, but when I need some, I use Promex. It comes in large bales. It's relatively inexpensive, although in the last couple of years the cost has skyrocketed, but so has the cost of every other bag of material. It works well for me. I have tried some competitive products over the years, but I've always come back to Promex because it's reliable. Now, outdoors in containers, I use about 70% garden soil and 30% compost. And I find that gives me a good mixture doesn't have to be fertilized as much, and it doesn't have to be watered nearly as much as just using potting mix. Potting mix dries too fast for outdoors. Now for indoors, for my streptocarpus and my other houseplants, I use ProMix, and I add a little bit of perlite to that. I like the media to be a little more porous than what comes out of the bag. I maybe add 20% perlite, and that's it. Basically peat moss and perlite. You don't need a lot of ingredients in these mixes. I see lots of people advertising DIY mixtures, and they have like 7 different things, and they mix them at different ratios. Somehow they think that ends up being better. It doesn't. I also see a lot of people adding perlite and vermiculite, and I've looked at those 2 products on my blog, gardenmist.com, and there's very little difference between the 2. I can't come up with a reason why you would use both. Once you've settled on a potting mix that you like and that matches your watering habits, you can use it for 99% of the plants. Annuals outside, house plants, tropical plants, doesn't matter. It works for all of them. And I use the same material to start my seeds in spring. There are a few exceptions, and the 2 notable ones are cactus and succulents. Particularly the cactus, they like to be much drier. They like to have a lot more air in their mix. And so in that case, I would use about 50% sand and 50% potting mix. And mix those up, and that will do quite well for you. The other exception are orchids, and orchids shouldn't be in potting mix at all, unless they're terrestrial orchids, and very few of you grow those. So I just use the term orchids. Orchids, I put in coconut husk chunks. These are quite large chunks. We want lots of air, lots of great drainage, and that works well. And again, in the orchid world, lots of people will add all kinds of things, a little charcoal, a bit of peat moss, a little sand, a little of that. You don't need it. Years ago, I grew in straight bark. When bark became really hard to find, we switched over to coconut husk, and now we grow in pure coconut husk. It's that simple. There are other specialty plants, but if you're growing those, you probably know their needs. Now, there's a lot more to learn about soil and houseplants, so I've got a couple video suggestions for you. Here's a video that will give you soil myths, and the one over here will tell you all about houseplant myths. Happy gardening.